right, so today we're diving into something a little different.
Yeah.
Backyard ponds in Minnesota.
Ooh.
Now, I know some of you might be thinking
Hmm.
mosquitoes,
Yeah.
freezing winters,
Yeah.
hours spent cleaning.
Yeah.
Basically, everything Sarah and Mark were worried about
Right.
in that Superior Ponds article we looked at.
Oh, yeah. I remember them. All those concerns.
So are those fears legit,
Uh-huh.
or are they just myths?
Yeah, that's a great question.
As we're going to find out.
Okay.
And a little background on Superior Ponds.
Yeah.
They're a company here in Minnesota
Uh,
that specialize in pond construction.
so they probably know a thing or two about ponds.
They do. They really
Yeah.
do. And in their article, they go through some of these common myths,
Okay.
debunking them one by one.
I like it.
So myth number one,
Okay.
and this is a big one.
All right.
Ponds require never-ending maintenance.
You think?
I mean, who wants to spend all their free time
Yeah.
scrubbing algae?
Right.
So Superior Ponds argues that a well-designed
Okay.
ecosystem pond
Ecosystem pond.
can actually be pretty low maintenance.
Hmm.
They say it's all about that natural balance.
Interesting.
So I'm curious, what exactly is an ecosystem pond?
Yeah.
Is it just a fancy name
Uh-huh.
for a regular old pond?
So it's not just any old pond.
Okay.
You can almost think of it like a miniature self-regulating ecosystem.
Okay.
You've got beneficial bacteria that are breaking down waste.
Uh-huh.
You've got plants filtering and absorbing all the nutrients.
Okay.
And even the fish themselves play a role in keeping things clean. So they all kind of work together
Okay.
like a well-oiled machine.
So it's more than just
Right.
throwing some water lilies in a hole
Exactly.
and calling it a day.
Definitely not.
So you actually need to put some thought into this.
Yeah, and you know what? Even the University of Minnesota Extension agrees.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they specifically mention
Okay.
how proper filtration,
Okay.
and the right plants can seriously reduce
Huh?
how much you need to clean and tinker.
Interesting.
But they also had a section on the 5 most common maintenance mistakes to avoid.
Oh, we'll have to get into that.
Yeah, we'll save that for later.
Keep everyone on their toes.
Exactly.
All right, myth number 2.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people in Minnesota
Uh-huh.
can relate to this one.
Okay.
Ponds attract mosquitoes.
Ooh, that's a good one.
I know.
Especially in Minnesota.
Right. Like, we already deal with enough of them.
So many mosquitoes.
I know.
All summer long.
But Superior Ponds says there's actually a pretty simple solution.
Oh, really?
Moving water.
Oh, interesting.
So think waterfalls, streams, even just like
Okay.
an aeration system, that keeps the water bubbling.
Right.
Mosquitoes are a lot less likely to breed in water.
Okay.
That's constantly moving.
Makes sense. It's like harder to lay their eggs when it's like...
Oh, right. Didn't they also mention something about
Oh, yeah.
fish helping out with that as well?
Yeah, so koi and goldfish
Okay.
are actually natural mosquito control.
Oh, wow.
They love to just snack on those little larvae.
Hmm.
And it's not just Superior Ponds saying this.
Oh,
The
really?
CDC actually has data
Okay.
showing that mosquito larvae have a much harder time surviving in moving water
Right.
or in ponds with fish.
So they're like little mosquito
I
assassins.
love it.
So double duty, beautiful, and they eat mosquitoes.
All right, myth number 3.
Oh.
This one makes me a little nervous.
All right.
Predators will wipe out my fish.
Oh, yeah.
I've seen some pretty big herons out there.
I've seen those herons lurking
Oh,
around.
I know.
Oh,
Looking for a snack.
So Superior Ponds,
Yeah.
they have strategy for that.
Okay, I'm listening.
Strategic pond design.
Oh, interesting.
So things like fish caves, step sides,
Yeah.
deeper areas where the fish can hide,
Oh.
submerged shelters.
So you're making it tough for those predators.
Yeah, you're giving them a fighting chance at least.
Right, exactly.
But are those precautions really enough to deter a heron? Those things are pretty determined.
They are. I've seen them. But you know,
Yeah.
the Cornell Lab of Ornithology,
Uh-huh.
they actually did a lot of research on herons.
Great.
And they found that while they can eat fish
Okay.
up to 10 inches long,
Wow.
they're also creatures of habit.
Okay.
So if they can't easily snag a meal,
Uh-huh.
they'll move on to easier pickings.
Oh, interesting. So you don't want to make it
Right.
super easy for them.
You don't want to lay out the welcome mat
Right.
for the herons.
Okay, so that makes me feel a little bit better.
A little bit better.
All right, now on to a myth that's very relevant
Yeah.
to those of us in Minnesota.
Uh-huh.
Ponds can't survive our winters.
That's a big one.
Right.
It gets cold here.
Yeah, I'm already picturing a giant ice cube
Yeah.
where my beautiful pond used to be.
Yeah. Right.
But Superior Ponds
Mm-hmm.
It says, with the right approach,
Uh-huh.
it can actually thrive all year round.
Really?
They talk about things like proper depth
Okay.
and aerators and de-icers.
Aerators and
I'm
de-icers.
not familiar with those.
So basically, if
Yeah.
your pond's deep enough,
Okay.
it's not going to freeze completely solid.
Uh-huh.
There's going to be a layer of water underneath that ice
Okay.
where the fish can hang out.
Okay.
Now, those aerators or de-icers,
Yeah.
those are little gadgets
Okay.
that keep a small area of the pond's surface
Okay.
from freezing over completely.
Why is that important?
It's all about oxygen.
Ah.
Fish need oxygen to breathe even in the winter.
Oh, okay.
So if the whole surface freezes over,
Uh-huh.
they can actually suffocate.
Oh, wow.
So by having those open patches
Yeah.
created by the aerators or de-icers,
Uh-huh.
that allows for that gas exchange.
Okay.
Lets the oxygen in, lets the bad gases out.
So it's like a little breathing hole.
Exactly.
For pond.
And you know what?
Yeah.
The Minnesota DNR,
Uh-huh.
they back this up.
Oh, really?
They emphasize how important it is
Okay.
to maintain those oxygen levels
Right.
during the winter.
Okay.
So it's not just some fancy idea.
Yeah.
It's science-backed.
Interesting.
So you can actually have a thriving pond
Yeah.
even in a Minnesota winter.
Now, don't they say that Superior Ponds actually helps people winterize their ponds?
Yeah, they work with hundreds of Minnesotans
Oh, wow.
to get their ponds ready for the cold.
So they must know what they're doing.
Yeah, they seem to know their stuff.
All right, myth number 5.
Okay.
And this one I think we've all dealt with at some point.
Oh,
Algae overgrowth is inevitable.
algae.
You know that green gunk?
The worst.
It's the worst.
Yeah, it turns your beautiful pond
Yeah.
into a swamp.
So Superior Pond says
Okay.
it's not a foregone conclusion.
There's hope.
There is hope.
Okay.
So how do they propose we fight
Yeah,
the green menace?
the green menace.
That's what we're calling it now.
That's what it is.
So they say the key is to really understand
Right.
what causes those algae blooms in the first place.
Okay.
Often it's a nutrient imbalance.
Okay.
So too much fish waste,
Mm-hmm.
uneaten food,
Yeah.
sinking to the bottom,
Okay.
even fertilizer runoff
Uh-huh.
from your lawn.
Interesting.
All of that can create a feast for algae.
So it's like an ecosystem gone wild.
It is. It's like a buffet.
Too many nutrients.
Yeah.
The algae go...
Exactly.
Okay.
So their approach is multifaceted,
Okay.
proper filtration
Uh-huh.
to remove those excess nutrients,
Okay.
beneficial bacteria treatments
Uh-huh.
to help break down the waste,
Right?
careful
Yeah.
yard treatments
Okay.
to minimize that runoff,
Rah.
and then incorporating aquatic plants
Okay.
that actually compete with the algae
Oh,
for
interesting.
those nutrients.
So it's like creating a system
Yeah.
where the good guys,
Yeah.
the plants and bacteria. Uh-huh.
Keep the algae in check,
I like it.
like a little army
Yeah,
of
yeah,
algae
yeah.
fighters.
And you know what? The National Association of Landscape Professionals,
Okay.
they actually support this kind of natural approach.
Oh, wow.
They're big fans
Okay.
of using things like floating plants
Okay.
to provide shade,
Uh-huh.
natural bacterial treatments,
Yeah.
and overall good pond management practices
Right.
to prevent the algae from taking over.
So it's a holistic approach.
It is.
I like it.
I'm liking this whole balance thing more and more.
Me too.
All right, myth number 6.
Okay.
This one's a big one.
Right.
Especially for families,
Uh-huh.
ponds are dangerous for kids and pets.
Yeah, that's a valid concern.
Yeah, it is.
Fish.
You don't want any accidents happening,
No.
especially around water.
Right.
So Superior Ponds is very clear about this.
Okay.
Safety should always be the top priority.
Okay, good.
They emphasize the importance of thoughtful design.
To minimize those risks.
I like it.
So what kind of design elements are we talking about here?
Okay, so they recommend incorporating things like
Okay.
gradual slopes into the pond,
Uh-huh.
so there's no sudden drop-offs,
Okay.
step sides
Yeah.
for easier exit. Uh-huh.
Shallow areas
Okay.
where kids can play safely,
Yeah, right.
and a graveled bottom
Oh,
to
yeah.
prevent slipping.
Good idea.
They also talk about secure edging and rock work
Oh.
to make that transition between the pond and the yard
Uh-huh.
a little more gradual.
So it's like you're thinking through every potential hazard
Right.
and designing it to minimize those risks.
Exactly.
Right.
And it's not just Superior Ponds saying this.
Really?
The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents. They're all about safety.
They are.
They state very clearly
Okay.
that well-designed ponds with these kinds of features
Uh-huh.
can significantly reduce the risk of accidents.
That's reassuring.
It is, really is.
Yeah.
You know, it's always so sad to hear those stories about
Oh,
pets
Yeah.
getting trapped in a poorly designed pond.
Right.
So a pond should be a source of joy.
Yeah.
Not worry.
Exactly.
Okay, last but not least,
All right.
we come to myth number 7.
Hit me with it.
And this one might be the biggest barrier for some people.
Okay.
Professional ponds are just too expensive.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
That's a common one.
I mean, building a backyard oasis can't be cheap.
Can't be cheap.
No.
Right.
But Superior Ponds argues
Okay.
there's more to the story than just the initial cost.
All right. I'm intrigued.
So what are we talking about here?
Yeah. So first off, they mentioned the potential increase in property value.
Uh-huh.
And they even cited the National Association of Realtors,
Uh-huh.
who found that well-maintained water features
Great.
can increase property values
Uh-huh.
by up to 12%.
Wow.
Think.
That's significant.
That's significant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But what about the ongoing maintenance cost? Right?
Doesn't that
Eat into the potential savings?
Well, that's where that
Oh.
ecosystem pond concept comes back into play.
Ah, I see.
A well-balanced pond requires less cleaning,
Okay.
fewer chemicals,
Uh-huh.
and fewer interventions overall.
Okay.
So that translates to lower maintenance costs over time.
So you're saving money on chemicals, cleaning supplies, potentially even professional maintenance.
Exactly.
And they brought up another interesting point.
Okay.
Families with ponds often end up vacationing less
Oh, interesting.
because they already have their own little oasis.
Right there in their backyard.
Right.
Why go anywhere else?
Right.
Exactly.
So that's potentially even more saving.
Right. You're saving money.
It's a financial perspective. Hadn't even considered.
Yeah.
It sounds like a lot of anxiety surrounding these backyard ponds really stem from these common myths.
Right.
And with the right planning, design, maintenance,
Yeah.
having a pond in Minnesota might actually be a lot more achievable.